A Fox NFL Sunday host is bringing sports to life in the pages of a new book. Fox 43's Cale Ahern is joining us now with the details.
In the world of sports, not every big play is exactly what it seems. Whether it's Christian Laettner's big shot for Duke in the NCAA tournament or David Tyree's helmet catch for the Giants during Super Bowl 42, there's always two sides to the action. And it's all being told in a new book. Fox NFL Sunday host and author of Losing Isn't Everything, Curt Menefee, joins us to tell us about it. How are you doing today, Curt?
All right, Cale, how are you?
Pretty well, pretty well. What gave you inspiration to write this book?
You know, it's one of those things that over the years, obviously, I've been in this business since I was 19 years old. So I've seen a lot of sporting events, a lot of winners and losers. I mean, I think people forget that for every great moment, there's somebody on the other side. It's a 50-50 chance. One side wins, the other loses. And so we see what happens to the winners. They go into glory, they get the TV job, they're famous forever. But we always wonder, or I have at least, what happens to those that lose? They kind of disappear, and 5, 10, 15 years later, we remember the great moment, but we forget that there was someone on the other side. And so I wanted to find out not only what happened in the games and the sporting events, but what happened to these people and their lives, because they didn't get the glory, they didn't get the fame, and if anyone remembers them, they're remembered for losing or having failed in maybe the biggest moments of their career. So how did that affect them emotionally, and how are they doing now? And that became the challenge, is just trying to figure that out.
What was your favorite part of compiling all these stories?
You know, first of all, it gave me a chance to meet a lot of these people, a lot of people that I grew up idolizing and remembering from great sporting events, or that I've covered, and really just focused on the winning side. So I got to meet a lot of great individuals in this endeavor. But I think the big thing is really kind of getting their story, because we forget that when you lose, that it does affect you, because it is your job. You know, that we think that, okay, you move on and you remember the glory of the winners, but the people that lost it affected them in so many different ways. And other people, some of them, didn't finish out their careers the way they wanted to, didn't continue their careers the way they wanted to, and then it affected their personal life, their home life, marriages. It's been really interesting to find out the psychological impact of losing a sporting event, even though it is their job, but that it's had on them and their entire families.
That's what makes this an interesting topic for a book. Do you have a favorite excerpt from the book?
You know, it seems as though the one that the people have responded to the most has been Calvin Schiraldi, who was the pitcher for the 1986 Red Sox. And everybody remembers the Bill Buckner play because the ball rolled through his legs, and we've seen it time after time after time. But Schiraldi was the pitcher who blew 2 leads in Game 6. And, you know, in the 10th inning, they had a 2-run lead. He got the first 2 outs, then gave up 3 straight hits, setting the Buckner play into motion. So he lost Game 6, came back in Game 7, a 3-3 tie, gave up a home run to the first batter, Ray Knight, lost Game 7. And here's a guy, in 1986, that happened to him. He didn't know how to deal with it, just kind of buried it year after year after year. And finally, in 2013, his wife told him, essentially, we're going to get a divorce unless you go to therapy. So 27 years later, he finally goes into therapy to try and get some help. And here we are 3 decades later, he's still emotionally dealing with having lost the 1986 World Series, and a guy that I think most people don't even have come immediately to mind when they think about that series, because everybody thinks about the Buckner play. But he's carried that burden for so long, and I think it's a story that I didn't know about, and I think that most people wouldn't.
I agree, Curt. I had no idea about that story. That's what makes this book so interesting. I can't let you get away without asking about the NFL. What has been your biggest surprise of the NFL season thus far?
I think the biggest surprise of the NFL season so far has been at least the consistency of the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, I think when you go into training camp with a guy who, Dak Prescott's their starting quarterback now, but he was the 3rd-string quarterback at the start of camp. He wound up being the starter by the beginning of the year, and they won 8 straight games and have the best record in the NFL. I don't think anybody saw that coming. So for me, for sure, the Dallas Cowboys and how good they have been, and they are for real, that's the biggest surprise of the season so far.
With the second half underway, what are you most interested as the playoffs approach to see what happens in the NFL season?
You know, I think that the thing is we see teams that consistently play better in the second half of seasons. I mean, like the Seattle Seahawks, you look at them every year, they get off to a slow to middling start, and then the second half of the season, they're one of those teams you go, they may be the best team in football. I think that's a team to watch as you go through this second half. The Kansas City Chiefs, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the same way. They get off to a slow start traditionally, and then they get hot at the end of the year. So if you can see if whether Seattle or Pittsburgh or somebody like that can make a run to get into the playoffs and then make some damage once they get there, I think those are teams to kind of keep an eye on.
Of course, Curt's book, Losing Isn't Everything, is available now, and you can catch him on Fox NFL Sunday at noon through the NFL playoffs right here on Fox 43. Curt, thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.